Back to John Hunter. John Hunter had a busy day. He came to London. He was the educated brother's dresser. So he got up real early, changed all the dressings, all that sort of thing. Later, he was good enough to have his own patients. And then he got into clinical teaching. He was a born teacher. And he did his anatomy teaching at the gallows. And those of you who have been to London, and you know where Hyde Park is, and the what it was, St George's Hospital there, that's where John Hunter had a little house and a little farm. You know, up to 300 animals there at any time. And that's where he did his comparative anatomy. And then in the evening, he did the outpatients. So if you think you've got a long day, you want to see what John Hunter did. And that's what he ended up having. Because this guy couldn't stop dissecting and working it out. The absolute amazing thing, at a time when the French were doing all sorts of things, this guy looked at something and looked at it across species. The thing to do at the time was, as head injuries were done in the early 60s with me, you described one coma, and then another coma, and then another coma. And really it was Brian Jeanette who said, actually, got the Glasgow coma score. This guy did the Glasgow coma score on anatomy. He said, let me tell you about teeth. Teeth are very important. And you look through all the animals, and you look at what they're eating, and their teeth are modified by what they have to do. And that's what this guy did. And I'll tell you how that affected the scientific world. And what he did was he grouped all his specimens, not like giraffes over here, whales over here, but he said, I want you to look at one thing, teeth, reproduction, something like that, and just look at it across a whole series of animals. And he showed how their structure was modified by or because of function. The other thing he did was he was very interested, as you can imagine, in the clinical pathology, and he had lots and lots of pathology specimens of people who died, but also the cases that he did or others did who subsequently died. He was very keen to get their bits. For instance, there's a lovely specimen of a giant popliteal aneurysm in which he had injected or put in lots and lots of wire to make it clot. Wire into an aneurysm? Now there's a new thought. Gosh, I wouldn't have thought of that. Just when you think you're thinking of something new, there's the activity, 13,000 preserved specimens. Not bad for a sort of a hobby. And he gave those all to the College of Surgeons. So in fact, by the early 1900s, there were 9 rooms in the College of Surgeons that had his dissections. That's a picture of 1910. 9 rooms. This man was unbelievably active. And that was the study area. So that's where you did your comparative anatomy, and you had a wonderful time. Until 1942. On an air raid, there was a direct hit, and that's what happened to one of the rooms where all those specimens were. The firemen came in and more or less destroyed a whole lot of other places. And there's a very sad curator looking at, look at those thousands or hundreds of skulls that John Hunter collected. So, by the year 2000, we had moved from 9 rooms down to 1.5 rooms. Amazingly, the one that survived best was the teeth, and his odontological exhibit is still the prize. And that's what it was in 2000. I think that was, when were you there, John? 2000. And that's, you remember that as it was then. But the College of Surgeons got a lot of money together, and got some public funding, and the museum, if you are in London, is worth seeing. It really is. It's open to the public, it's a public museum, and this is what it looks like live. It's absolutely stunning. This is the Crystal Room. There's the great Irish giant. And the story of that is good too, because he was a pituitary giant. Hunter recognized that. The man was a bit short of cash. Hunter paid him. This is the challenging bit. Oh yes, there is. It's an ordinary. It's obvious. And he paid him money, but as this chap got nearer and nearer to death, he was terrified of being dissected after death. And he paid people to take his body out having died and dump it in a boat which would be sunk in Goodwood Sands. Hunter heard about that and paid the people that he paid to take the money and got the thing. And this is the Irish giant. But you will see here, all of them are put together in teeth, femoral heads or whatever, just to do it as in that way. He also was very keen, as you know, on function and surgery, and you can go in there, and these are various instruments that you can play with in the college. And there are some, there's the Stubbs painting again, other Stubbs, all part of the collection of John Hunter. So that's what it was like, and it certainly has influenced a lot. Okay. So who did it influence? Well, it influenced this man, because no one had ever thought of anatomy that way. They thought of, dissecting and the femoral head of this is that, and so on. But Darwin suddenly, began to realize, as others did, that grouping the facts together was a way to look at deducing new laws. So science consists of grouping facts so that general laws or conclusions may be drawn from them. And that was his next step. I've steadily endeavored to keep my mind free so as to give up any hypothesis, however much beloved, as soon as facts are shown to be opposed to it. That was what he claimed that he was doing. Now, not everybody agrees. But in The Origin of Species, I think in 1859, he said, I call this principle, with each slight variation useful, is preserved in terms of natural selection. The Origin of Species. And it was in 1871 he then went on to write the other book, The Descent of Man. But Hunter's work influenced him very significantly. Now, again, we talk about the interaction of various specialties. Philosophy. Karl Marx was hugely affected by Darwin's stuff, which had already started from. And Karl Marx then looked at political thought in terms of the survival of the fittest. Now, if you really believe that, then you can get rid of 10 million people quickly, because your idea of running a new state is very important. So that's how these thoughts were developed at the time. Of course, we all get things wrong from time to time, and John Hunter was no exception. There I was, asleep, says one scorpion to another, in this little cave here, when suddenly I was attacked by this hideous thing with 5 heads. We see the world from where we are.